Well, good to see everyone, and welcome to a new season of the Coach McVay Show, presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC with Sean McVay, the head coach of your Los Angeles Rams. I'm JB Long. Great to see you. Thank you for agreeing to do another season of this. You know it's the favorite part of my week.
Yeah, well, I love doing this with you. Where I don't know where DeMarco is, but I love being able to hang with you, and it's always enjoyable.
DeMarco is a big drive time talk radio star now, but he'll be joining us throughout this season, and he sends his best. And before we get to any of the X's and O's from your win over Houston, Sean, I thought you were right to start yesterday's post game with the theme of toughness, right? Because even if that one somehow got away from you yesterday, I think the way that your guys gave as good as they got in that rock fight, that'll play over the course of this season.
I think so. And that's a really physical football team that we played. I got a ton of respect for the Houston Texans. You feel why they've been a top 8 team each of the last 2 years, winning their division, getting to the divisional round. There's a physical style of play that I think is, illustrated in their head coach's personality, and it's going to be a good football team. But for a first game, I mean, you could feel there was a lot of physicality. Yeah. There was a lot of toughness that was required, and there was a lot of mental toughness that was required to be able to not flinch, stay in the fight, and overcome some things that, man, we're excited about being able to improve upon.
I listened to you over the course of the summer, and I'm just trying to draw out themes, like what does Sean want this team to be, what characteristics, and I picked up that, like, the last couple of years, the takeaway, that scar tissue seems to be that the way you respond to adversity can actually be a competitive advantage in this sport.
No
question. And I love what I saw in game one. Not to draw too many parallels, but last year, week one, your offensive line is in turmoil, right?
Yeah.
And it probably cost you that game in Detroit.
Sure.
It happens at different spots yesterday, but it didn't.
Yep.
It didn't. You found a way.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. And you're so plugged in and you're so intentional about understanding, where does this team go? How do we keep developing? You got great relationships with the guys, and you and I have obviously a really cool relationship that I value. But what I think is the biggest thing is are we really built for it? Built for whatever this journey entails.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned it, are we able to use, the separator is how you handle those storms, and they can show up in big ways, or they can show up in small ways throughout the course of the game. And there was a lot of those, whether it's some of the big plays that get called back, some of the different things where you feel like you should be in control, and you get a penalty here, or you do things that are uncharacteristic, but the guys just stayed steady. They made a lot of stuff right, and they just kept fighting through. And even in the midst of some of the adversity, particularly offensively, I thought the guys stayed even-keeled. They understood why things weren't really going down. The defense kept our football team in the game, but I never felt a divide. And then you talk about competitive greatness, being your best when your best was required. They drive down. We're up 5 points after we turned the football over when, that was an unfortunate deal on a 1st and 10 on the 12-yard line where you got a chance to be able to slam the door. It didn't go down. We had a couple penalties that extends the drive, and then Landman comes up with a timely punch out, which has been the practice performance and preparation equal in game reality. What a recovery by Fiske. And then, all right, offense goes out there and you get a penalty on the first play. And you stop the clock and it's 1st and 20. They got all 3 timeouts, and you're thinking, man, this is not a favorable spot to be in. They're probably going to get the ball back, but our guys refuse to allow that to be the narrative. Kyron Williams has a tough, hard-earned run on 1st and 20 for 4. Then he comes back on 2nd and 16, same sort of presentation, gets 8 yards. And that earns a 3rd down and 8, and then Matthew and Puka connect on a play action that ends the game. Alaric Jackson does a great job of securing the edge on a little boot action off a similar deal, and we close the game out. And I thought that was really reflective of what this team's been about, and I thought it was cool the way that it came to life. And anything that's really worth it is hard, and that was a hard-earned win, but it was an earned win. And there's so many cool things that we can take from it, and we're looking forward to really being able to see that improvement from week 1 to week 2 on tape next week.
We had some fun on the radio with you yesterday. Maurice Jones-Drew
wanted
wanted you to run it.
Yeah.
He wanted that to be a 3rd down run, steal their last time out, and punt it if necessary again. I argued the other way.
Yeah.
You're probably right either way, but you went for it. And what I love about that sequence, that 3-play sequence, it was diabolical. I mean, I've seen you do a lot of things over the years, but when you're at your best, you marry the run and the pass, right? And if you go look closely at those 3 plays, I almost suspect that you set it up with the holding so that you could do that
Yeah,
first down, second
I wish
down,
I could
third.
say I was that on it, but it was.
What's Petrie supposed to do there?
Yeah, no, it's a tough deal, and I thought, our guys ultimately executed. And what's cool about that story is, we'd like that run concept, and not exclusive to 4-minute, but in normal downs.
Sure.
Matthew, recommended putting in an action off of that, and then it ends up being the play that we call that he closes it out early. Yeah, throughout the course of the week. And so that's where you just feel so lucky to have such a stud that, you really talk about a guy being an extension of the coaching staff, the way that he thinks. And then he and I were on the same page with that thought process on the third down, and really us collectively as an offensive staff. And then it's always about the players being able to bring it to life. And what I think is cool is they executed in a critical moment. There's a lot of things throughout the course of that game where I'm excited about how can we be better and how can I be better for our group moving forward. And then, how can we collectively move forward the right way?
It only works, though, if Puka Nacua, stitched up as he is,
That's right.
is a viable threat to fit into that gap.
100%. And we talked about that yesterday. I mean, this guy, he's so tough. He represents everything that we want to be about. But I thought our group as a whole played tough. But for Puka to have the willingness to insert in the open B gap, be able to put his face on really physical players that are, excellent, in both phases in Jalen Petrie, and to be able to legitimize that because of what occurred on the first two snaps, is big.
That wasn't a fourth down go for it, but it had the feel of it. There was a fourth down go for it on the doorstep. You said you didn't love your call on the Kyron touchdown.
You know what?
Line.
I thought our players did such a good job of making that right. In that situation, the alignment of the defensive end, was not ideal, but our guys just fought through the down, and they played decisive. They made quick decisions, and they gave Kyron enough where they got connected. You talk about Higbee and Puka Nacua at the point of attack. You talk about Alaric Jackson, even Bo Limmer as a left guard staying connected to be able to fight to run people past. And that's not exactly how that play is designed to hit. Usually it happens like what Cam Akers did a couple years ago in our first game at Seattle. But sometimes, good decisiveness and good decision-making by our guys can fight through a bad play call, and that was a great example of that.
Sean, I swear I heard you say last Friday that Matthew Stafford is a terrible sneaker.
Yes.
You were asked if you ever push with him.
I know.
And you go out there 48 hours later.
I'm stubborn. You know what? We were so close that it sometimes seemed... Yeah, you know what? I am a stubborn guy, and you were right. I should have known better, but I like the dramatics to set up a fourth down.
Can't get too far away from that Landman punch. I already saw your enthusiasm. But if he was known for anything as a Falcon, that was it. And whether it was Jimmy Lake coming back to L.A. from Raheem's staff with a good recommendation, maybe you can give us some color in terms of how he got here, won the job in the green dot right away, and was voted a captain 4 months into his time in L.A.
It's a really cool story. I mean, I got a text from Raheem even saying Landman coming through with the punch. He obviously loved him. Jimmy couldn't say enough good things about him. And then I give John McKay a ton of credit. John obviously had been watching, and he has such a good feel for the landscape of the league. He thought this would be a great person to be able to come in. We ended up signing him as a free agent. And I mean, you talk about a guy that's just kind of earned the respect amongst his teammates. Great communication, great command, great understanding of what's going on from an all-22 lens. I mean, the way this guy thinks about the game is really special. And he's got a high EQ, an ability to be able to connect with his teammates. He's got a swagger, a natural leadership, just traits and characteristics where there's certain guys that just have a good feel for the right time, the right tone to press the right buttons with guys. And then, it's more important to say, seen is better than said. And he shows it by the way that he models the way that he brings his teammates with him. I mean, he gets so many votes. I think being voted a captain is a cool thing. You come in your first year as a Ram, obviously a bunch of guys that have earned respect and earns the green dot, earns the recognition to be voted a captain by his teammate. And there was no doubt that he thought he said he called a shot. He said, I'm getting one out this week. And he did it at the most critical time. And it was awesome.
I mean, the Fiske recovery was one of the most
That
athletic.
was incredible.
I mean, I'm excited for him in year two. I think we saw a taste of it, but maybe not the full fruition. And he's not just a pass rusher, is I guess probably the point as he sets up for this year.
That's right. He played 40-plus snaps yesterday. I thought he was really stout and physical against the run, taking on double teams. He's a complete player. He's obviously well-regarded and well-known for, his get-off, his penetration, his ability to be able to rush the quarterback. But this guy is an athlete. I mean, you remember the fumble that got called back that he picked up and ran back the other way against the Saints.
Yeah, sure do.
Showed some real run instinct. instincts. And then, I mean, what a great, position, to be able to at full extension snatch that thing in. And as great as that punch was, the recovery might have been as impressive as well. And those two guys that was competitive greatness at its finest.
All right, here's one from our guy DeMarco. Yeah. Obviously, we got to touch on the Cobie Durant interception. Don't know how he came down with it, but DeMarco points out second quarter he comes off a 3rd and 16 play and makes that tackle when it looked like there was a caravan to a first down.
100%. It was huge. We talked about great defenses, all 11 tackle. I thought there was an illustration of that when we blitzed, Quentin Lake off the edge, and my man Forbes had to make a great tackle running his feet through contact earlier in the game. And then the 3rd and 16 you're talking about, they throw a perimeter screen. We talk about, being physical, locking the elbow surface. He falls off on a 3rd down and 16, ends up making a great tackle for a gain of 7, and now they're punting. And he, you talk about a guy that made his impact and his presence felt with the snaps that he played. He was awesome. And go back and watch their celebration too after he ended up getting that pick. But that was a big play that DeMarco's alluding to. We just showed it in the team meeting as a huge play that he ended up making. And I think, a calling card for us is all 11 are going to tackle. They're going to be physical, and he did a great job in that in that instance right there.
Felt like Byron Young played a whale of a game. Some even said that's maybe the best game he played as a Ram. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's one of the most complete games he's played, no doubt. Played 50-plus snaps. Thought he made his presence felt in really all phases. I thought he was excellent defending the run. Makes a great TFL, earlier in the game. Ends up pursuing, reading out of the stack on some stuff. Does a great job in coverage. And then obviously, had a big-time sack where both he and Verse were basically walking both the tackles into the backfield, kept our rush contained. He was outstanding. I was really pleased. Both Cobie and Byron Young, you asking about them, both those guys were game ball guys on defense.
You mentioned Jared there. He's getting some AD 99 treatment already. I saw at least one play where he's seen 3 Texans on his rush attempt. Maybe it doesn't show up in the counting stat categories, but his fingerprints all over that game.
No doubt about it, and then that's part of it, and that's one of the things that when you continue to ascend into a really good football player, sometimes it means you got to be able to dish it out and set some other guys up. We talk about 11 as one. He's going to get a tremendous amount of respect. I thought he did make his impact on the game, and then when there's going to be some opportunities, he'll continue to deliver, but he certainly, drew a couple holds, ended up, being excellent in, some of those phases. And, I'm not interested in the stats. I'm interested in your impact and influence on the game. And when you're a guy that can sometimes dictate the turn of the center because you have such respect from the edge, that says a lot about you.
Feels like you're talking about Davante Adams too on the other side of the football. I mean, if he did nothing except occupy Stingley
that's right.
for 4 quarters, he helps you win yesterday.
Yeah, and it shows the respect. It's funny that you mentioned that because I think both those guys are great to be able to, reflect upon because Verse draws a couple penalties that don't show up in the stats. So does, Davante Adams. Drew 2 penalties, ended up making some big 3rd down conversions for us, and I thought he was outstanding. It shows the respect that he has earned and that he has around this league for a great corner in Stingley to travel with him. I could tell right away they were, matching him up with him, and he did a great job. He won those one-on-ones. I mean, you talk about a total G. His first catch, on a 3rd down and 2, catching a slant, and their inside backer, that whole player in the man coverage ends up kind of reading out of it. He gets up flexing, and, I'm glad Stingley was okay too there. But, I mean, we got some physical players, and I thought, we knew it was going to be that type of game, and Davante was big with the 4 catches he made and the couple penalties he
got
drew.
so sick of seeing him catch those back shoulders from Aaron Rodgers and Lambeau all those years. It's nice to see it at SoFi and Royal and Soul. But the one he plucked off the turf on what became a touchdown drive on 3rd, I mean, we may not be having this conversation. He doesn't make that play.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I called a really, I joked about it in the post game, but it's true. It was a bad call. Go -3 on 1st down, then 2nd and 13. For the guys to strain up front. It was, it was a loose pocket, but the guys were fighting to stay connected. It allowed Matthew to be able to get through his progression. And you're right. Davante takes that off the turf. You can't appreciate it unless you look at that from the end zone where he ended up, all fingertips, makes a huge catch right there. And that ended up being the Davis Allen touchdown drive.
Sure.
First one coming out of the half, which was huge to just flip the momentum of that game. Without that play, you're probably right.
Speaking of Davis, there's like a short list of guys that reflect, I think, the roster depth and the competition that we talked about all summer. Jay Witt's one. Tyler Davis gets a sack. X-Man, a big play. But Davis, just to take him in isolation, new position coach, Higbee coming back healthy.
Yep.
Your first pick of this draft is in his room, and he had a great summer. So I'd love to see that translate to week 1.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is Davis just earned it. I think Ferguson is going to be a factor for us. We got to be able to figure out a way to get him involved. He had the groin injury where he missed a bunch of time. That type of game, felt like that was going to be the best approach. But whether you talk about, I think Scooter Huff's done a great job with that group as a whole. Obviously, great having Higbee back. I think Colby Parkinson and Davis have both improved tremendously, and Ferguson's a guy that is going to be a really good player for us. I love his response in terms of making his presence felt where he could. But you look at who's one of the first people to come out there and greet him, with the salute. It's Terrence Ferguson after Davis catches the touchdown, and then he's out there, playing a wing on the field goal operation.
I could see why that's maybe not the moment to give T. Ferg his first rep as a pro, knowing what that defense is and the time he missed. But the fact that he was dressed and active tells me he's going to be part of your plan sooner rather than later.
That's exactly right. You know that.
You could have saved me a lot of sleep this summer if you should just let me know that Matthew could still flip his hips and do that, and I didn't have anything to worry about.
I know. It was cool. For him to be able to do what he did yesterday against that type of defense, I thought he had really great command, and I thought he played a really clean game. I can do a better job when we're in the fringe area, already have field goal range of not giving us a chance to take that sack, but thought he saw the field really well. I thought he got the ball where it was supposed to go. He was outstanding yesterday.
That seam ball in the fourth to Puka.
Oh, that was awesome.
My goodness.
He's got a free defensive tackle on his face, almost basically no looks it. But, what a talented, to go over 60,000 yards where so few people have ever done this. It's a credit to his consistency, but his ability to keep his eyes down the field, knowing that he's going to take a hit right there, stand there and be able to get through that motion, without really being able to get his hips through. It shows you, what a talented thrower of the football he is and what a tough competitor he is.
A couple words on special teams. Joshua Carty's artistry off the tee. If I didn't know better, I think you might be becoming a fan of this dynamic kickoff.
Yeah.
You like it this year.
I like it when we have those 3 kickoffs the way that we did. I thought it was cool, to have Josh hit really all of those in the landing zone where they land. 2 of them result in touchbacks where the ball's on the 20, not the 35. And then, that one was close where the second one that Dolak makes a great tackle lands just inside the 20. But that was a real weapon. I think this play is back in football for us to have a 10-yard advantage, in our drive start position off of that play with the kickoff return for us to be the 31, them the 21. That's a big deal, and that's going to be something that we keep leaning into. I might be a fan of it after all.
We'll see. But, when you give up 9 points, no touchdowns allowed, those long fields are the underlying reason why that's all possible.
No question. And I think, what can't be understated, too, and I was just asked about this, is, Ethan Evans as a weapon, to be able to have to decide to be able to go for a short field punt when we're on the 39 and for him to kick it out of bounds on the 5-yard line. What a credit to, his overall execution right there. Chase and Coach Kotwick have done a great job. And, that was an excellent special teams unit that's been really high ranked under Coach Ross. They have some really good individual players, and I thought we did a good job of, probably winning that matchup.
The game owes Jordan Whittington about 100 yards between his kick
right?
return and his catch.
Oh, I know.
It'll come around for him.
To have a 74-yard return and then a 30-plus yard catch come back. But what's cool about him is he didn't let it bother him at all. He just kept going to work and made his impact on the game. He's a total stud.
Injury updates. Is it Kevin Dotson and Steve at guard and Cobie at tight end that we're
really
looking at?
Those 3 are the main ones. Both those guys came out of the game at separate times. K-Dot got his ankle after Steve. Bo Limmer's playing left and right guard. They'll be week to week. I'll look forward to seeing how they feel on Wednesday. And then Cobie, got a pretty good AC sprain. Ended up, finishing the game. And he is a tough dude to be able to do that. We'll see what his status looks like throughout the course of the week. But those 3 guys, are the ones. And hopefully they're okay. It doesn't look like it's going to be anything long term. We'll see how it affects their status for the Titans.
It'll be a bit of a Rams reunion in Nashville. We got Bones Fossil, we got Johnny Hecker, Van Jefferson, Sebastian Joseph Day. These are some gentlemen that have really impacted winning during your tenure here in Los Angeles.
It seems like, you feel so fortunate to be going into year 9. And there's a lot of guys that have gone on and had success elsewhere, whether that be coaches or players. Nothing makes me happier, but, we'll try to get after those guys. But they're excellent players. They were excellent, contributors to a lot of really good memories here. And, that's what this is about. It's about relationships, but we'll look forward to trying to get after them. But we know how good those guys are and what a great coach Bones is.
I was thinking about the theme of Cam Ward and quarterback reps, which are harder than ever to come by right now in football. We even saw this summer how much they meant to Jimmy Garoppolo. and Stetson Bennett.
Right.
But you just can't play full speed football, tackle football much. But Cam Ward, because of his college experiences, as a rookie, more like a Dylan Gabriel or a Bo Nix in terms of his time on task. And that probably puts him in a different position when you see him in week 2.
Yeah, it does. And I'll look forward to really diving into this film. I thought he did some really cool stuff. When you watch what he did in the preseason, he was obviously an unbelievably dynamic player throughout the course of his college career, and obviously capping it off with a great finish to his career at Miami with what he did. There's a reason why he went number 1 overall. They were convicted and convinced, and he's a guy that we're going to have to do a great job of bottling up because he can make plays in the pocket off schedule. He's just one of those guys that's kind of a gamer, and so it's going to be really important for us to keep him bottled up.
And your reflections on your first trip to Nashville as head coach of the Los Angeles Rams?
Oh man, that was a cool memory. This was back then, being able to win that first division, was a whole lot of fun. That seems like that was an eternity ago, but you cherish every single one of those, and to be able to do that in 2017 was special. It's a great atmosphere. It's a great fan base there, and so we know it's going to be a great challenge.
Thanks for your time, Sean. Enjoyed catching up with you, and glad to see you guys get a home win to start your 25 season.
Me too. Thanks, JB.
All right, for Sean McVay, I'm JB Long. Thank you for joining us each and every week for the Coach McVay Show, presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC.